A highly experienced award-winning journalist for 20 years, with 16 of those years spent at Insurance Post magazine, Stephanie Denton is one of the longest-serving journalists in the insurance industry. She spent time on the news desk as a reporter and senior reporter, worked on features and supplements, rose to supplements editor in 2006 and took over as editor in 2013. As editor, she's responsible for editorial excellence at one of the leading insurance trade publications, read by more than 25,000 insurance professionals every day since 1840 as a trusted source of deep dive market intelligence. Hi, Steffi. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
You've had quite a career as an insurance journalist. How has the industry, and Post in particular, kept your attention for so many years?
Well, during my journalist training, we had a talk from the then editor of the Grocer magazine, and he came in and he talked to me about the importance of trade magazines and the fact that they support their industry and that they hold up a mirror to the sector. And that really grabbed my attention, first of all. So I knew I wanted to go into a trade publication. So as you say, with Post History, it was a lovely place to start out. I didn't know anything about insurance, and I've watched my peers move around from sector to sector, but insurance really has held my interest, and for two main reasons. Firstly, when I joined, former editor of Post, David Worsfold, gave us a talk about insurance, and he said, give me a news story and I'll give you the insurance angle. And he was exactly right. There's nothing that happens in the news that isn't somehow affecting insurance or being affected by insurance, because insurance is behind everything. So there's never a day that goes by that there isn't something interesting happening. And it is so varied. I love that we write about general insurance, because it means one day I can be writing about car insurance claims and the next day I'm looking at space and satellites. You know, there's something so varied. And the second thing is just the people. It is a people sector. And from day one, everyone has been so helpful and supportive. And I'm not an insurer. There are still days when I don't know a term within insurance, and people are happy to talk you through it and happy to tell you exactly what's happening. And that's really what sort of kept me going.
Wonderful. And how have you fared during COVID? What have been the challenges, would you say, as a journalist during this period?
Well, it's certainly been a busy year. For the first few months, there was just so much going on. There was so much news. It was really hard to sort of see the wood for the trees. We had already worked from home to an extent. Several of us did it sort of one day a week. So actually moving to working at home full time wasn't a problem. Effectively, if we have a phone and a computer, we can still work. So that was fine. Some of the people who were in shared houses did struggle a little bit. And it definitely was a challenge with the kids working from home. I've got two at home, so that home education was interesting. It was also interesting for us in the fact that people weren't going to their offices. So we had to make a decision quite early on not to print some of our issues and really put our effort into making sure that the online content was doing what it should be. We've resumed that now, and we've had good feedback for it. But that was an interesting decision for us to step away from print for a little bit. I think in terms of the other challenges, it's just that human contact thing. Part of how we work and what we do is through those relationships. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have been in the industry for a long time, so I could keep that going. But I think certainly if people were starting to build new relationships, it would have been really, really tricky throughout COVID.
And apart from COVID, what's been the industry story of the year for you?
I mean, COVID really has touched everything. So it's really tricky to sort of think of something that hasn't. I mean, if you look at the motor sector, that's been impacted, travel, the travel bans, business interruptions obviously been the biggest story of the year, but that was all prompted by COVID. But there are still other stories that have happened. I mean, certainly the year started off with Davies Group acquiring Kios. We had Aon announcing its plans to buy Willis Towers Watson, which was just before lockdown. And more recently, we had the Co-op market study deal. And then in people moves, we obviously saw Amanda Blanc come back to the market as a Aviva CEO, which is a very big story. And Pat Reagan has recently left QBE. So there are other stories, but obviously COVID was the big one.
And I guess there aren't many industry starlets that you've not interviewed over the years. Who would you say is the most memorable and why?
Well, the most memorable ones were actually the toughest ones. So I probably can't name names there. They're really challenging ones. But I'd say the most memorable and enjoyable was with Danny Cotton, who I spoke to just a few weeks before she became the first female London Fire Commissioner. And that was brilliant, because actually I was used to speaking to people within the sector, and to get an outsider's view on what insurance was doing, and especially the fire point of view, was really, really refreshing. She was also really, really interesting, and her life experiences in a sort of challenging sector, which was really male dominated. And the real plus side was obviously that I got to go on a fire engine.
Oh, wow. So you and Post clearly have a great reputation and a really good relationship with the industry, but how would you say that the industry could work better or smarter with the press in 2021?
Well, thank you for saying so. I think if I could change one thing, I would ban press releases. Should probably make PRs take a huge intake of breath. But I mean, they are the go-to thing these days. It's the natural reaction. Something's happening, quick, send the press release out about it. I can get over 200 press releases a day. So to really grab my attention, that's not the way to do it. And I'm afraid a lot of them will just go straight in the bin. If it's a story that you want to go somewhere and you really want to do something with it, just talk to us. Pick up the phone, have a chat with us. We'll be able to ask you questions and tailor that information so that it's exactly right for our readers. And the likelihood is you'll get much more column space if you're talking to us than sending a press release.
Interesting. And what are your plans for Post editorially next year? Are we going to see any big changes or exciting new additions to the content?
Well, this year has really sort of focused our mind in terms of how people are using us. We know the website's getting really, really good hits, and we know that people are using it really for market insight. So we really see our role as providing sort of 3 core things, and you'll see a lot of that this year. So firstly, the in-depth news and analysis that we're very well known for, that will carry on. That's our bread and butter. That's what we're known for. We've also realised that people value our opinions, so we've introduced something called briefings this year. We've got an award-winning team, and as you say, we've got lots of experience in the market, so we're really looking at those areas that are happening and giving you our opinion. We're telling you what we think, which goes back to that sort of holding up a mirror on the sector as well. Secondly, we've got all the tools on the website to support people for their CPD and IDD requirements. So that training and reading Post really can help you get and stay qualified. So we'd like everyone to look out for all the site to see those bits and pieces. And finally, we're well known for the market shaping research, and that will be a big year this year for that. Last year, we introduced our best insurance employer research, and we're going to do that again this year. It'll be bigger and better. And we're also looking to develop more areas of research for the market alongside with our sister division, Charters Research. So you'll see some of that too.
Fantastic. Look forward to that. Okay, so that's the hard work over. Now some quick fire questions for you. Are you ready, Stephanie?
I think I am. Yes, go for it.
Okay, your best film.
Well, me and my son absolutely love the Marvel Heroes films. I don't know if you know those, but there's about 24 in the series, and they keep us going. They're brilliant for escapism, getting away from the real world. And I would definitely like to be a superhero, so I can do all of those magic things that they do.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to skip down the list then and ask you, if you were a superhero, what if you had powers, what would they be and why?
It would be teleportation. I know I'm not commuting right now, but when that returns, I would love to just materialize in the office, not have to get on the tube, that just appear wherever I like with whatever I need. And on holiday as well, imagine skipping all the queues and just being able to arrive on the beach.
Oh, yes, especially at the moment. Your best book?
Well, I love reading, so this was really hard to narrow down, but I love all the Harry Potter books. I read them as a young adult, and I've recently read them with my son, reread them, and they're just magical books, and I just absolutely love them. My favorite probably is The Goblet of Fire.
Ooh, yes. Okay, your dream interview?
So I have a bit of a thing about space. I love space, and I've been teaching my son about all of that. And I would really love to interview Helen Sharman, who was the first British astronaut and the first woman ever to visit the Mir space station.
Interesting. And would that be the same for who is your hero or heroine?
No, my hero or heroine actually is, I grew up with Kate Adie on the telly. She covered all of the news. I mean, the images of her in Tiananmen Square and things like that. And I later read her biography. Spitting Image gave her some sort of moniker, which was something like BBC Head of Bravery. And watching her as a child was just an absolute inspiration to me. And that's one of the reasons I went into journalism.
Wow. Okay, who would play you in the story of your life?
I think I would have to say Isla Fisher. I think she's around about my age. She's kind of got my hair colouring and she's a bit cheeky.
Definitely. Okay, and lastly, cheese or chocolate?
Well, I love cheese, but I think if I was stuck with just one item, it would have to be chocolate every time.
That's great. Thanks so much, Steffi, for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you.